What if one simple favor started a chain of emotions no one was ready for? Daniel never imagined that a short drive across town would stay in his mind for weeks. It was a normal Sunday night in their small Michigan suburb. Dinner had been warm and calm. Emily had cooked roasted chicken. Her mother, Linda, brought dessert like she always did. They laughed about old family stories. Nothing felt unusual. After dinner, Emily checked her phone and sighed. "I still have to finish that presentation," she said. "Daniel, can you take Mom home? I'm exhausted." "Of course," Daniel replied without thinking. Linda smiled kindly. "I don't like driving after dark anymore." The air outside was cool. The sky was deep blue, almost black. As Daniel drove, soft music played in the background. At first, they talked about simple things. The new grocery store. Rising gas prices. Emily's busy job at the marketing firm downtown. "She works too hard," Linda said quietly. "She's ambitious," Daniel answered. Linda looked out the window. "She gets that from me." There was pride in her voice. But also something else. Something softer. When they reached her condo building, Daniel noticed one of the hallway lights flickering through the glass door. "Would you mind coming up for a minute?" Linda asked. "The maintenance guy hasn't fixed that light yet. It makes me nervous." Daniel hesitated for half a second. Then he nodded. "Sure." Her condo smelled like vanilla candles. It was tidy but quiet. The kind of quiet that felt heavy. "I'll make some tea," she offered. "You don't have to," Daniel said politely. "It's already boiling." They sat across from each other at the small dining table. Steam rose from their cups. For a moment, neither spoke. "You've been good for her," Linda said finally. Daniel looked up. "For Emily?" Linda nodded. "She was broken once. You know that." "I know," he said softly. "She doesn't show it," Linda continued. "But she's afraid of being left." Daniel frowned. "I'm not going anywhere." Linda studied his face carefully, as if searching for something deeper than words. "You say that now," she replied gently. "But life changes people." He shifted in his seat. The conversation felt more serious than he expected. "Is she worried about something?" he asked. Linda hesitated. "She saw a message on your phone last week." Daniel's chest tightened. "What message?" "From a woman. Late at night." He relaxed slightly. "It was a coworker. We're working on a project." She asked about numbers. Linda nodded slowly, but her eyes didn't fully soften. "You have to understand," she said quietly. "When someone has been hurt before, even small things feel big." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "I would never betray her." Linda looked at him for a long moment. "I hope that's true," she said. The words were not accusing. They were cautious. Daniel felt something uncomfortable stir inside him. Not guilt. But awareness. He suddenly realized that he was being observed more closely than he thought. After finishing his tea, he stood up. "I should head home." Linda walked him to the door. "Thank you for bringing me," she said softly. As he reached for the handle, she added, "Daniel?" He turned. "Be patient with her fears." "I am," he replied. Their eyes met for a brief second. It was not romantic. Not inappropriate. But it was intense. Honest. He drove home with the radio off. When he entered the house, Emily was still working at the kitchen table. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. She smiled faintly and went back to typing. Daniel watched her for a moment. He loved her. That was clear. But Linda's words echoed in his mind. "She's afraid of being left." The next few days felt slightly different. Emily checked his phone once while he was in the shower. She didn't say anything, but he noticed. At dinner one night, she asked casually, "How's that project with Sarah going?" "It's fine," he answered. She nodded. But her smile didn't fully reach her eyes. Meanwhile, Linda sent a simple text. "Thank you again for the ride. I appreciate you." It seemed harmless. Daniel replied politely. Then another message came 2 days later. "Can you recommend a good plumber? My sink is dripping." He sent her a number of small things. Normal things, but a quiet thread had formed. On Friday evening, Emily announced she would be traveling for work the following week, 3 days in Chicago, she said. Daniel forced a smile. That's great. Linda called that same night. I heard Emily's going out of town, she said gently. You must be lonely already. I'll survive, Daniel joked. She laughed softly, then she said something that made him pause. Loneliness can sneak up on people. The call ended shortly after. Daniel stood in the living room, phone still in his hand. Nothing inappropriate had happened. No boundaries crossed. No secrets. Yet something subtle had shifted. Linda's tone. Emily's quiet questions. The small moments of tension. He didn't realize it yet, but he was standing at the edge of something delicate. Not physical temptation, not obvious betrayal, but emotional confusion. And sometimes, that is where real danger begins. As Daniel turned off the lights that night, he had a strange feeling that the simple act of driving his mother-in-law home had started something far more complicated than he ever expected, and he had no idea how quickly it would unfold. How do you know when kindness is slowly turning into something dangerous? Emily left for Chicago on a gray Monday morning. She hugged Daniel tightly at the airport. 3 days, she said. That's it. I'll be here, he replied. He meant it. He loved routine. Work during the day. Gym in the evening. Quiet dinners at home. But the house felt different the moment he walked back inside. Empty. Echoing. That night, Linda called. Just checking in, she said. First night alone is always the hardest. I'm fine, Daniel answered, though the silence around him felt louder than usual. You can come by tomorrow, she added gently. I made too much soup. He hesitated. It felt harmless. She was family. Okay, he said. The next evening, he drove to her condo after work. Rain tapped softly against the windshield. The hallway light was still flickering. Inside, the condo felt warmer than before. Softer lighting. Music playing low in the background. You didn't have to cook, Daniel said. It keeps me busy, Linda replied with a small smile. They ate at the small kitchen table. The soup was simple. Chicken and vegetables. Comfort food. You're quiet, she observed. Just tired. Or thinking, she asked gently. Daniel looked up. About what? Marriage, she said calmly. Life. The future. He shrugged. Normal stuff. Linda leaned back in her chair. Emily is strong. But she pushes people away when she feels insecure. She's been checking my phone, Daniel admitted before he could stop himself. Linda didn't look surprised. She's scared. There's nothing to find, he said firmly. I believe you, she replied. The words felt reassuring. Too reassuring. After dinner, he helped wash the dishes. Their hands brushed once while reaching for the same towel. It was brief. Accidental. But both noticed. Daniel stepped back slightly. You don't have to rush off, Linda said quietly. It's still early. He glanced at the clock. 8:15 p.m. I should head home, he answered. She nodded, but her eyes held something deeper. Not flirtation. Not exactly. Just longing. The next day, Emily called from Chicago. I miss you, she said. I miss you too. There was a pause. Mom hasn't bothered you, right? Emily asked casually. Daniel hesitated. No. Why? She just worries. I can handle it, he replied. But later that night, Linda texted again. Are you eating properly? He smiled despite himself. Yes. A second message came. It must be quiet in that big house. He stared at the screen longer than necessary before typing back. It is. Minutes later, his phone rang. I'm sorry, Linda said softly. I didn't mean to disturb you. I just know how silence feels. Her voice sounded vulnerable. Honest, do you feel lonely? He asked without thinking. All the time, she answered. That word lingered. The next evening, she called again. This time her sink was leaking, water everywhere, she said dramatically. Daniel grabbed his toolbox and drove over. The leak was minor. He fixed it in 10 minutes. You always come through, she said warmly. He shrugged. It's nothing. She stood closer than usual. Not touching, but near enough that he could sense her perfume. You remind me of someone, she said softly. Who? My husband. When he was younger. Daniel felt a strange mix of discomfort and sympathy. I'm not him, he said gently. I know, she replied. You're kinder. The compliment landed heavily. He stepped back again. I should go. But as he reached the door, thunder rolled outside. Heavy rain poured down suddenly. You can wait it out, Linda suggested. It's dangerous driving in this. He checked his phone. Weather alert. Flash flood warning. Reluctantly, he sat back down. They talked about small-town life. About missed chances. About how fast years pass. You and Emily still look at each other with love, Linda said quietly. We're trying, he answered. Trying is good, she replied. But love fades when it's not fed. He didn't like where the conversation was going. You sound like you're warning me, he said carefully. Maybe I am. About what? About distance, she said. Emotional distance creates space for mistakes. The storm outside grew louder. Inside, the silence between them grew heavier. Linda moved to sit beside him on the couch instead of across the room. Not touching, just closer. You're a good man, Daniel, she whispered. His heart beat faster. This isn't appropriate, he said quietly. I'm not doing anything wrong, she replied calmly. But something was shifting. He stood up. The rain's lighter now, he said. She looked at him for a long second. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. You didn't, he lied. On the drive home, his thoughts were loud. Nothing physical had happened. No lines clearly crossed, but emotionally, something fragile had begun to bend. The next morning, Emily sent him a selfie from her hotel room. 2 more days. He smiled at the picture, yet Linda's voice echoed in his mind. Love fades when it's not fed. That evening, she sent one final text. Thank you for taking care of me this week. It means more than you know. Daniel didn't reply right away. He stared at the message. He realized something important. He liked being needed, and that realization scared him, because what started as simple kindness was slowly becoming emotional dependence, and he didn't know how much longer he could pretend it was harmless. How close can someone get to a mistake before it becomes one? Emily was still in Chicago when everything nearly fell apart. The house felt too quiet again. Daniel tried to distract himself with work, but his focus slipped. Linda's messages had slowed, but not stopped. Short texts. Gentle check-ins. Subtle reminders that she was there. On Wednesday evening, his phone rang. I'm sorry to call this late, Linda said, her voice shaking slightly. The power just went out in my building. Everything's dark. Daniel checked the time. 9:40 p.m. Did you call maintenance? He asked. They said it might take hours, she replied. I hate the dark. He could hear real fear in her voice. Without thinking too much, he grabbed his keys. I'm on my way. The drive felt longer than usual. Rain clouds covered the sky again. The condo building was dim when he arrived. Emergency lights flickered in the hallway. Linda opened the door quickly. Candlelight lit the room in soft gold. Thank you, she breathed. You okay? He asked. She nodded but didn't move far from him. It's just memories, she admitted. After my husband passed, the nights felt endless. Daniel felt sympathy more than anything else. You're not alone, he said gently. They sat on the couch. The room was quiet except for distant thunder. Candlelight made everything softer. Warmer. I don't want to burden you, Linda said. You're not, he replied. She turned toward him fully now. Her eyes reflected the flame beside them. You've been so kind these past weeks, she said quietly. Kinder than you realize. Daniel felt tension rise in his chest. Anyone would help. No, she said softly. Not everyone stays. The words landed deeper than he expected. He shifted slightly. Emily will be home tomorrow. I know, Linda answered. Silence followed. Heavy. Emotional. Do you ever feel unseen? She asked suddenly. Sometimes, he admitted before thinking. In your own house, she pressed gently. He hesitated. Marriage has seasons. And this season, she asked. He didn't answer. Linda moved closer, her shoulder nearly touching his. I see you, she whispered. The sentence sent a rush of heat through him, not desire, but validation. Recognition, and that was the danger. He stood up abruptly. This isn't right, he said firmly. She looked startled. I didn't mean, I know, he interrupted softly. But this is heading somewhere it shouldn't. Her eyes filled with emotion. I never planned this. Neither did I, he admitted. The power suddenly flicked back on. Bright white light filled the room, breaking the mood instantly. Reality returned. Daniel grabbed his jacket. I should go. Daniel, she said quickly. He paused at the door. I'm sorry, she whispered. Loneliness makes people reach for warmth. He nodded once. We can't mistake comfort for something else. He left before she could say more. The drive home felt intense. His thoughts raced. Nothing physical had happened. No betrayal in action. But emotionally, he had stood at the edge, and for a split second, he had liked the feeling of being needed. Of being seen. That truth disturbed him. At midnight, Emily called. Flight lands at 3 p.m. tomorrow, she said brightly. I'll pick you up, he replied. You sound tired. Long week. She laughed softly. Tell me about it tomorrow. After the call ended, he sat in the dark living room. He thought about boundaries. About how easy it is to justify small things. It's just tea. It's just conversation. It's just comfort. But emotional closeness can grow quietly. Without warning, the next afternoon, he stood at the airport waiting area. When Emily walked through the doors, smiling and searching for him, something inside him shifted back into place. She hugged him tightly. I missed you, she whispered. I missed you too, he said honestly. On the drive home, she talked about her conference. New clients. Future plans. Excitement filled her voice. Daniel listened carefully, and he realized something important. He had allowed distance to grow because he never spoke about feeling overlooked. Instead of talking to his wife, he had listened to someone else. That was the real danger. That evening, as Emily unpacked, his phone buzzed. A message from Linda. I'm glad the power's back. Thank you again for coming. He stared at the screen, then he typed slowly. I think it's best if we keep some space. For everyone. The reply came minutes later. You're right. No drama. No argument, just understanding. At dinner, Emily smiled across the table. Mom said you helped her this week, she mentioned casually. I fixed her sink, he replied. She nodded. She gets lonely. I know, he said quietly. Emily reached for his hand. I don't want us to drift, Daniel. He squeezed her fingers gently. We won't. Because he had seen how close drift could lead to something else. Later that night, lying beside his wife, he felt relief. He had stepped back before, crossing a line, but he also knew something fragile had been exposed. Loneliness. Validation. Emotional gaps, and if they ignored those cracks, the next test might not end the same way. As he closed his eyes, one thought stayed with him. Infidelity doesn't begin with touch, it begins with silence, and he had almost let silence win. Is love proven by resisting temptation, or by facing the truth before it's too late? The morning after Emily returned felt different. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just clear. Daniel woke up early and watched the sunlight move slowly across the bedroom wall. Emily was still asleep beside him. Peaceful. Trusting. That trust felt heavy in the best way. He knew one thing. Silence had almost created distance. And distance had almost created something worse. At breakfast, Emily looked at him carefully. You've been quiet, she said. I've been thinking, he answered honestly. About us, she asked. Yes. She put her coffee down. Is that good or bad? It depends on what we do next, he replied. She waited. Daniel took a breath. When you were gone, your mom called a few times. I helped her with some things. Emily nodded. She told me. There's more, he added. Her expression changed slightly. Not fear. Just attention. He chose his words carefully. Nothing happened. But something almost did. The room felt still. What does that mean? She asked quietly. It means I realized how easy it is for emotional lines to blur when people feel lonely. Emily didn't interrupt. I never touched her. I never said anything inappropriate, he continued. But she leaned on me. And I didn't stop it soon enough. Emily looked down at the table. Processing. Did you feel something? She asked softly. I felt needed, he admitted. And that's dangerous when it comes from the wrong place. Silence stretched between them. Not cold. Just honest. Why are you telling me this? She finally asked. Because secrets grow, he said. And I don't want anything growing between us. Tears filled her eyes, but they didn't fall. I appreciate you telling me. I should have spoken sooner, he added. Emily stood up slowly and walked toward the window. Mom has been lonely since Dad passed. I know that. I know, Daniel said gently, but that doesn't excuse crossing boundaries. No, he agreed. She turned around. Did she say something specific? Daniel hesitated only a second. She said she sees me. That she feels invisible. Emily closed her eyes briefly. Pain crossed her face, but not anger. I should have been there more, she whispered. This isn't about blame, Daniel said. It's about awareness. Later that afternoon, Emily called Linda and asked her to come over. When Linda arrived, she sensed the serious mood immediately. Is everything all right? She asked carefully. Emily gestured for her to sit. We need to talk, she said calmly. Daniel stayed in the room. No secrets, Emily spoke first. Mom, I know you've been lonely. But leaning on Daniel emotionally crossed a line. Linda's face paled. I never meant to hurt anyone, she said quickly. I know, Emily replied. But intention doesn't erase impact. Linda looked at Daniel. Did you tell her everything? Yes, he answered firmly. She swallowed hard. I'm ashamed, she admitted. I confused comfort with connection. Emily's voice softened slightly. We're family. That means protecting boundaries, not testing them. Linda nodded slowly. You're right. Tears filled her eyes now. After your father died, I lost my sense of purpose. When Daniel helped me, I felt seen again. I let that feeling go too far. Daniel spoke carefully. I should have set limits sooner. Linda shook her head. You did, before it became worse. The honesty in the room shifted the energy. Pain was present. But so was clarity. I need space, Emily said gently. Not forever. Just until we rebuild trust. Linda accepted it without argument. I understand, she whispered. She left quietly. The weeks that followed were not dramatic. They were steady. Emily and Daniel talked more. About small things. About big things. About fears they had avoided before. One night, Emily admitted, I'd been distant because I was afraid you'd see my insecurities. Daniel held her hand. I almost let someone else fill that silence. She nodded. That's why we can't let silence grow. They began setting intentional time together. Walks after dinner. Phones off at night. Honest check-ins about how they felt. Linda respected the distance. No surprise visits. No late calls. Just short, appropriate messages. Months passed. At a family dinner near the holidays, the tension was gone. Not forgotten, but healed. Linda seemed calmer. She had joined a community group. Started volunteering. Rebuilt parts of her life that had felt empty. After dessert, she pulled Daniel aside briefly. Thank you for being honest, she said quietly. It was necessary, he replied. You protected your marriage, she added. I protected all of us, he corrected gently. She smiled faintly. I see that now. Later that night, as Daniel and Emily drove home, she reached for his hand across the center console. We faced something hard, she said. Yes. And we didn't run from it. He squeezed her fingers. That's what matters. The truth was simple. Infidelity doesn't always begin with action. It begins with unmet needs. With silence. With emotional gaps, but it can also end before it begins. If someone chooses honesty over ego, Daniel had stood at the edge of a mistake, Emily had faced discomfort instead of denial, and Linda had accepted responsibility instead of defensiveness. No one was perfect, but they chose transparency, and sometimes, love isn't proven by never facing temptation, it's proven by walking away from it before it costs everything.